This is a sign. That which you are seeking is also seeking you. Hi, welcome back to Sweet Infinity. My name is Kieran. I'm on a mission to read through my oracle decks or tarot decks, and I hope that it resonates for you. Today I'll be reading from the Citadel Oracle Deck. I have read from this before on this channel. This deck is a beautiful deck that comes in these octagon-shaped cards. The artwork is a mix of black ink, red in some places, and copper-colored inlay, which is shiny and beautiful. I'm not sure if it's capturing it in this light, but it's a beautiful set of cards. So I'm going to shuffle these, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video if you can. If you are interested in purchasing your own deck, I will be posting a link down below in the description with some links where you can find it if you're in Canada, US, or UK. And I would appreciate it if you would purchase it through those links, because that way I'll get a tiny little portion of the purchase without costing you anything extra. So whatever you pay on Amazon, that's what it would be for you. And I'll get a tiny little bit, and that helps me sustain my channel. Thank you again for joining me here. Check out my other videos as well. I've been doing these readings for a while. And let me know in your comment what you think about oracle decks, because I actually really like oracle decks personally. Okay, I'm going to pick several cards from this deck, and then we'll get started. The first one I got is The Forgotten. And underneath it, it says, missed opportunities, fear of failure, the forgotten. In this one, there's some kind of waterfall or something. And there's a figure either falling in or somehow embroiled in this watery realm. It's called the Forgotten. The next one I got is The Puppeteer. And this is a black hand with shimmer inside of it, puppeteering these two figures that are in the air. And actually, one of them kind of looks like the other figure, which is interesting. So I do a reading of all of these cards together after we go over each one. For the Puppeteer, there are two things on the bottom. It says explanations and apologies. Next, we have the Alchemist card. And this one has a feather and ribbons and some alchemist symbols, some acorns. And on the bottom, it says balance, invention, and destruction. Next, we have the Patron. And there's two hands. They're holding some kind of keys. There's a book above them. And it says mentorship and finances. The Patron. Then we have the Storyteller. The Storyteller is telling a story using their hands. There's these shadows that are being cast on the wall behind them, and it says viewpoints and control. Let's look at all of these cards together. We've got the Forgotten and the Puppeteer. Then we have the Alchemist, the Patron, and the Storyteller. So we've got 5 cards altogether here. As far as I can tell in these cards, there are definitely some commonalities. For example, the Forgotten and this, like I was saying earlier, there's a figure here that seems to be falling into the water. And here there's a puppeteer, and the puppeteer seems to be controlling these two figures, or puppeteering these figures maybe. Well, the Patron and the Puppeteer both have these hands. So there's one hand here in the Puppeteer, and in the Patron there's 2 hands. So there's the hand symbology. And then again, with the Storyteller, there's also hands, several of them, and they're doing these shadow puppets on the wall. We've got several hand symbols. Hands are about agency, about making change in the world, taking charge, taking control of some kind, making choices. And water is usually symbolic of emotions. Okay, so let's read some of these meanings. What kind of meanings am I getting out of this? And the Alchemist card is probably the one that sticks out the most. Doesn't really seem to have a whole lot in common with the others. But it's in the middle. So I got that between the other 4 cards. So we had the Alchemist. And then just before that, we had the Forgotten and the Puppeteer. So let's say if we put them in order. We had the Forgotten and the Puppeteer. And then the Alchemist. And then the last two after that we got were the storyteller and the patron. And I feel like the alchemist somehow had something to do with transforming these guys into these guys. Because that's what alchemy is. So alchemy is many things, but it's seen as something sort of a pseudoscience, right? But if you look at it from a more historical point of view, alchemy is where the word chemistry comes from. And the idea that an alchemist is someone who can transform or transmutate something into another thing. So before what we today call chemistry, there were different kinds of arts and sciences that were practiced all over the world. Alchemy gets a bad rep these days in the West, but there are ways to look at it that might have something to teach us. So for example, a lot of people think of alchemy as the art of changing lead to gold, but it doesn't have to be literally seen as that. I've also read interpretations of thinking about it as changing something that's heavy and destructive, even, lead poisoning and things like that, into something that's valuable and beautiful, like gold. And that could mean something like taking trauma, wounds, scars, hurt feelings, and turning them into something beautiful like art or poetry or paintings or music. And that could be considered kind of alchemy too, because you're taking pain and turning it to beauty. You're taking something heavy like lead and turning it into something beautiful like gold. So there are different ways of looking at it. We're not talking about some kind of literal thing. I mean, you could talk about that, but that's not what I'm talking about in this case. I'm talking about the art of changing something that is generally not seen as valuable, like lead, into something that's seen as valuable. And that's an alchemist. That's how I see alchemy when it comes to the spiritual, metaphorical definition. So in that case, you have the forgotten and the puppeteer, right? And they seem to be, because remember, this is the Citadel deck. And the Citadel is the city. It's made up of people. And this deck is unique because it's all about life in the city. In the city, you find a lot of people who are homeless and barely getting by, right? In a lot of cities. Where I live, in Canada, in the US, I think you find a lot of these cities where people are forgotten. Other people pretend not to see. I'm sure if you live in a city or any kind of bigger town, you see them too. But maybe you've gotten used to it too. Everybody has. It's not about being a bad person. It's like that's what's expected. You're going about your day, you're working or whatever, walking around, and you don't see the people begging for money or people who are sitting on the sidewalks. A lot of people find them to be annoying, and I feel like they wish that they couldn't see them, so they want to be blind to that. And in a way, those people, the homeless people, the poor people, the people who are downtrodden, are the forgotten. And then the puppeteer are puppeteering people's lives. I mean, who puppeteers people's lives? So these are the people who've fallen through the cracks. And then these are the people who run the whole system, the structure. And there could be different names for them. But I would say that the puppeteer are the people who are in charge of puppeteering people, whether they are running companies, governments, politicians, business tycoons, magnates, whatever you want to call it. So we have really the opposite kind of relationship where nobody forgets these people. Everybody wants to kiss up to them. Everybody wants to be on their good side. And then people want to forget them. People want to pretend that these people are not there. Maybe they give them some charity now and then, maybe around Christmas time. What about the rest of the year? So we have the puppeteer. And if you read the description of this card, which I will now, there's something very interesting in there. So let's read about the forgotten first. It says, a canal runs through the citadel, deep and silent, reflecting the evening lanterns. Little cafes line the banks, filled with conversation and laughter. Couples scroll past, wrapped up in their evening. No one sees the figure that passes them all by, gaze averted. The forgotten does not speak, nor hear, nor even see. They are so certain that they have nothing to give the world that they don't even try. The social pressure to say and do the right thing can be overwhelming, and no one gets it right every time. Don't allow the fear of making a mistake stop you from trying at all, though, or you will find yourself isolated from the very company you crave. Be aware of what's causing you this anxiety and turn that negative energy into something constructive. So this booklet is giving the advice as though they're talking to the forgotten and telling them, hey, just because you might feel social pressure doesn't mean that you are not worthy. And I think that's great advice. But the idea is that they are the forgotten among the hustle and bustle of the city. Okay, so let's read about the puppeteer next. The puppeteer. Soft curls of sawdust litter the floor, and the scent of wood shavings fills the air. Shelves, cupboards, and tabletops are covered with wooden figures, some half assembled, some not yet fully carved, each one lovingly made and tenderly painted. The puppeteer does not know the fear of being alone. When loneliness calls, they simply create their own company. But these puppets will never be the equal of human companionship, and though they will not admit it to themselves, the puppeteer will never be fully satisfied. Conjuring real social skills can be a challenge. People have their own feelings and their own lives, and it's easy to say or do the wrong thing. You're not the only person to have made an embarrassing mistake in the past, so own up to it and smooth things over. An apology or explanation is a small price to pay to maintain important relationships. So the puppeteer in this card description is a literal puppeteer, making puppets out of sawdust while there's sawdust flying around. And in my interpretation, the puppeteer is puppeteering the social structures that have left behind the forgotten. So they're connected. That's why you do a reading, is you find the connections between the cards. I see that, and especially because the figure here is falling down and the figure here is almost in the same position. They remind me of each other. For the puppeteer, this might just be a rejected puppet. They might not even see this figure as human beings. They might see them as the price of doing business, collateral damage, whatever you want to call it. And to the average person, they're somewhere in the middle here. And for them, they want to forget these people and they want to be seen by these people and kept in high regard. And that is a very common thing. But what if you were these people? And maybe that's the fear that's driving the people who are in the middle, that I don't want to turn into these people, right? Somehow I can be these people. If I just try harder, work harder, do the right things, maybe I can be these people and avoid being these people. And okay, maybe, but can a puppet ever become a puppeteer? Just think about it. If you accept the premise that there are puppeteers and then the rest of us are puppets, has there ever been a case where a puppet becomes a puppeteer? No. Or if the puppeteers create a puppet that they bring into the club of puppeteers? I have never heard that. I mean, maybe in Twilight Zone or that kind of stuff, but never in real life. The creation or the puppets can never be the creators of that system. You might get to clean their shoes, but you'll never be among them. And in a way, this puppeteer is very lonely. The puppeteers themselves are lonely because all they have are puppets. I mean, imagine being surrounded by puppets and no people anymore. That must be a very lonely way to be. And I mean, I'm not talking about literal puppets. I'm talking about people who are only there because they want something from you, because they have their own interests and they're never going to really tell you the truth. And to me, that's very lonely. So I think this person is lonely because nobody wants to see them and nobody wants to be them. And this person is lonely because they have inordinate amount of power over other people's lives, which gives them a sense of control, but robs them of a sense of belonging and love. Real love. Not love they have to create themselves or pay somebody to pretend to have, but real love, genuine love. Can they have that? Can both of these characters find a way to get their needs met? Well, that's where the alchemist comes in. Now, the alchemist could be another person or some kind of force or some kind of change that takes over, some kind of spiritual evolution that takes over, or group of people who find a way to get through to these guys and say, hey, can we please stop this charade and do something that actually works for both of you, for all of us? Because that would be nice, right? Less unhappiness in the world for everyone would be nice, I think. Let's read the description of the alchemist, because I think the alchemist somehow brings us to the patron and storyteller. Let's get there. The alchemist. Colored liquids and strange-smelling chemicals bubble from inside of glass apparatus. A creature watches you from inside of a bottle, blinking its single eye, and in the middle of the chaos sits the alchemist, surrounded by an infinity of notes. It takes genius to create, and the alchemist is the embodiment of invention. They understand the core principle of creation, solve et coagula. Something must be destroyed in order to create anew. That place of safety must be burned down in order to rebuild from the ashes. The alchemist is not afraid to take drastic measures in order to achieve their goals. In order to create, be it a new project, a new chapter in your life, or perhaps a new relationship, something must first be dismantled in order to make space. But in alchemy, nothing is ever truly destroyed. The new is built on the foundations of what has come before, and there are lessons to be learned from the rubble. Now we're getting somewhere. The forgotten, desolate, desperate, lonely. The puppeteer, powerful, surrounded by yes men and women, but lonely. Here comes the alchemist. Could be a force within yourself. Could be a way for you to start looking at the world differently, to learn about alchemy, different kinds of alchemy. Could be a way for you to go to therapy. Could be a way for you to take up some kind of self-expression, to heal, to get a different perspective, get into meditation, get into some kind of spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be an external force, is my point. Once you get into the transmutation of being able to turn something that's heavy, full of suffering, then the alchemist can maybe show the path forward for these two at the alchemist, and possibly we are now approaching the storyteller and the patron. What I see in these cards is that the puppeteer could be the patron. The puppeteer does not have to be alone. They have money, power, connections, whatever, and they're very lonely. But at the same time, there are other people, for example, the forgotten, who have stories to tell. The forgotten can be the storytellers, the artists, the filmmakers, the poets. And you know what those people need? Patrons. What used to be the forgotten becomes the storyteller. What used to be the puppeteer becomes the patron. This one is no longer lonely because they are genuinely supporting artists who used to be on the street or who used to have no patrons. And this one is no longer disempowered because they're finally able to use what they have, which is their story, their art, their skill, their voice, and tell the world what's going on and how they see the world. But for that, both of them have to be brave, and they have to be able to step away from their comfort zone. Because as it said in the description, the alchemist is the energy of destroying what needs to end, dismantling the thing that's not working. And that includes our inner belief that we can only be this or we can only be this. If you have the ability to be a puppeteer of any kind, you have the ability to be a patron, to be a mentor. And if you are in this place, then you have a creative treasure trove. So let's read for the last two cards, the storyteller and the patron. The storyteller. Children gather on the far side of the square, their attention glued to a wooden box, a white sheet, and a lantern. Behind it, hidden hands transform into beasts and people made of shadows, telling stories both old and new that have the children laughing and cheering equally. The storyteller is the conjurer of this magic, the ringmaster of this show, in control of every character and every line. The most important story in your life is your own, but you are just one story in a tapestry of thousands. It's important to respect the tales of others around you too. Rather than forcing people to conform to the role that you think they should play in your story, learn to communicate and see things from their point of view also. Not only should this improve how you perceive others, it will help you build better, more solid relationships. And finally, let's read about the patron. Amongst the chatter and music of the salon, one voice rises above the others, confident and companionable. The patron has achieved a certain level of success and prosperity and makes it their business to know everyone around them, particularly those with talent who might just need a little extra support to fulfill their potential. The patron indicates that a period of mentorship is beginning for you. Either someone is due to enter your life offering support and advice, or someone is looking to you for guidance. Whether it is you or someone else who is taking on the role of the patron, focus your energy on this new union, as it will bring a period of stability and empowerment to the both of you. So these two go together. The storyteller needs the patron. The artist needs the patron. The writer. And the patron has all this money sitting around. What's it good for? Feed people, help people grow. That's what that is good for. And that will make this patron less lonely and curmudgeon-like, which is what he was here. He or she, or they. The puppeteer sits alone, making puppets, not having any real friends. But the patron, they have people they're mentoring who could become their friends. And they have genuine respect from people, not just obedience. Meanwhile, the forgotten, whether they are literally homeless or in some way going through a really rough time, need a patron and a friend who can help them become a storyteller, who can help them find their inner voice and the means to be able to express it, develop it and hone it and learn the crafts that they need to learn. And all of that is done via a kind of alchemy. Alchemy as in turning something that's heavy and maybe even detrimental to society or to you personally into something that's valuable and beautiful, like gold. So that's the journey of these cards. That's what I got in this reading. I hope that this was helpful, useful, interesting. I would love it if you would leave me a comment. Tell me how this reading made you feel. Are you a storyteller? Are you a patron? Say hi, and I would love to hear from you. If you like this video, please do a thumbs up and share it with someone that you know. Also subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I will be back with another reading. Check out the other videos that are on this channel. Meanwhile, and always, take care of yourself and take care of each other and have a sweet infinity.